everyone. We are broadcasting live from the 2013 Year Natural Baby Fair. I'm Sunny Galt. I'm the owner of New Mommy Media. We produce 3 different audio podcasts focused on new and expecting parents. Preggy Pals is the show that I host. It's focused on pregnancy. And we have a show called Parent Savers for parents of newborns, infants, and toddlers. And then Robin, our special expert for today's discussion, hosts the Boob Group, which is all about breastfeeding. And, I guess, what's the word I'm looking for? As a result, our talk right now is about breastfeeding, I guess, obviously. Our talk is about breastfeeding, and we're talking about how to manage those speed bumps we all come across when we're breastfeeding. How do we overcome these little speed bumps to have a positive breastfeeding experience? So before we dive into that, I wanted to let you guys know, if you are watching us live, that you can chat along right with us and participate in our conversation. So if you're on the website, there is a chat box. All you have to do, you don't have to log in or anything like that. You can just start typing away. If you're on Twitter, use the hashtag YNBF2013, and we'll be looking for anyone that makes comments using that hashtag. So 2 great ways you can be part of our conversation. So before we kick things off, let's learn a little bit more about our panelists here. And Christine, let's start with you.
Sure. Hi, I am mom to 2 3-year-old identical twin girls, and I've got my 6-month-old singleton with me today, Michaela.
I can't believe she's already 6 months. That's craziness.
Yes. It's amazing. Thankfully, it's been going by very quickly, and I'll just say her favorite pastime is breastfeeding. Oh, yeah.
All right, go ahead.
I'm Shelly. I have 9-month-old identical twin boys. And yeah, up until about 6 months, I would say that was probably their favorite thing to do, too.
So, yeah, it's kind of, I didn't even plan this, but you guys both have a set of twins.
I know.
That makes an interesting conversation when we're talking about breastfeeding, right? Well, that's why God gave us 2 boobs. Yeah, exactly, right? Okay, so Robin, let's go ahead and dive into this. What are some of the common speed bumps that moms typically face when breastfeeding?
So in the talk that I just gave a couple hours ago, we were talking about managing speed bumps. And these were speed bumps that aren't necessarily, latch and, the little things that we deal with in the beginning of breastfeeding, but really looking at after that kind of 3-month mark. So when a mom's milk supply kind of plateaus, what are we looking at? So what are the main triggers for kind of reducing a milk supply, which would be going back to work, a very distracted baby that's nursing, when we start introducing solids and things like that. So those can be some little minor speed bumps that kind of hit moms over the head when they're thinking, things are going great, I've got this nice groove on, and then you're like, 3 months rolls around and you're like, wait a minute, isn't this supposed to be easier? And it is easier, but there can be some little hiccups on the way even after those first initial ones.
I felt like at 6 months is when there's like a dip for me. It's like, the newness of having a baby is worn off, and you get into this period where things were going good, and then all of a sudden, and I think we've talked about this actually on the Boob Group, is that there's so many distractions, and for me, I felt like most of my speed bumps happened at about 6 months and continued from there. But what, for our panelists here, like, what are some of the speed bumps that you guys have noticed in breastfeeding, and were there steps that you took to try to overcome that?
I'll say, let's see. With this one, early on, she had a case of thrush. So I can say, and it took me a while to figure out what it was, too, but I just felt burning pain. So for me, pain is definitely a speed bump when it's not fun, to do that. So just, I did some research online, talked to my midwife, got the medication, and within, a couple weeks, it was good. Everything's good.
Yeah? Okay. Anything for you, speed bump?
So I went back to work in about 3 months, and I had the opposite problem. I had an oversupply that I was dealing with. That was kind of triggered by pumping, and so managing that, just trying to keep in touch with my husband, like how much exactly did they eat, so when should I stop pumping to try to kind of reduce that. And then I actually stopped working at around 6 months, came to stay at home with the boys. When we introduced solids, though, it was a whole new speed bump because they were so excited and interested that they were nursing less, and it kind of freaks you out a little bit. I was used to these babies that would nurse every 2 hours, start to start on the dot all day long, and all of a sudden it would be 3-4 hours, and I'd be engorged and confused and and so just staying on top of like how's their weight gain, how are they doing, are they still kind of nursing enough, keeping them interested, offering often enough. And about 9 months, we kind of hit another little period where they're nursing even less than they were. And I don't know, the like early baby new mom in me thinks like they can't be eating enough. How are they possibly? But you just have to trust that they're doing what they know how to do.
Well, that actually, is a nice lead into my next question, Robin, and that is, like, how much milk does a baby need at the various stages? Because I think as moms, we think that they need more than they actually do.
Absolutely. So, initially we're looking at that first day is about 5 milliliters per feeding. So it's minuscule. And then it kind of kicks up to about an ounce per feeding once they hit around 5 days. And then around 2 weeks, we kind of plateau around 2 ounces, even 3 ounces, up for the first 6 weeks. So they're not getting that much per feeding, just about 2 to 3 ounces. And then once they kind of get above that 6 weeks, they might push it up a little bit higher. There's this great website called the Milk Calculator, where you you put in your baby's current weight and how many times they're feeding in a 24-hour period, and it pops out this number. But it really is, what you're really looking at is about 2.5 times your baby's current weight, whatever it is. But then what happens is right around when you hit 4 months, babies kind of plateau how much they're taking, and moms kind of plateau about how much milk they're making. Okay. So really, once you get through those first couple of months, you're looking at the average baby would take about 28 to 35 ounces in a 24-hour period. And granted, you have to fit in there kind of how long are they sleeping for, how many times they're eating. But really, most babies take about 3 to 5 ounces per feeding. And so, which is interesting because bottles will go all the way up to 8 ounces.
Well, and I think that's where we get it in our head that our babies have to have more, is because the bottle says 8 ounces.
Yeah, yes. It's very rare for a breastfed baby to take 8 ounces in a feeding just at the breast, because they cut themselves off a little bit. And granted, some babies will. I don't want to say that there definitely are some, but on the whole, most babies cut themselves off at about 3 to 5, sometimes 6 ounces, depending on how big they are and how old they are and stuff. And they stop there. And so one of the major speed bumps that I see, especially from when moms go back to work, is that the babies are actually being overfed while they're being taken care of by someone else, because the care provider is not quite sure what the baby is actually taking on a regular basis. And we don't have notches on our breasts, so we don't know how much they're taking from you unless you go to a support group or something like that to find out. But usually they plateau around that 3 to 5 ounce mark.
Wow.
And go ahead.
I was going to say, I never knew that that's how much I take. When I was pumping with my twins, and of course I'm looking, I'm like, okay, we're going to fill this bottle up. I mean,
that's what you think, yeah.
I'm thinking, got to fill it up. And if I got it maybe quarter full, half full, towards the beginning, I mean, that was really daunting. And I think, mentally it was, kind of demotivating, I'll have to say. So, I think that's an excellent point.
Yeah.
You have these huge bottles, we're like, well, wait, I'm not filling it up, so I must not be producing enough. So, thank you.
My pleasure.
I had, like I said, the opposite problem. I mean, I luckily respond really well to the pump and was pumping just tons and tons of milk, and it was concerning me because my babies won't take any more than 3 to 4 ounces from a bottle ever. Never have. I mean, and it's 3 is pretty much common no matter how old they've been.
And they're 9 months old now.
Yeah, and they've never taken more than 3 to 4 ounces. And so in the beginning, I was struggling. I was like, I've made all this milk and they're not drinking it. Is there something wrong? But I looked online and was able to find some support resources that said no, absolutely normal.
Yeah. I always felt bad too when I was pumping, because even my pump bottles were 5 ounces on each side, and I would feel bad I didn't hit my quota. If both weren't filled to 5 ounces, but that's a lot of milk. If you could get that out of a feeding, that is amazing.
That is a lot of milk.
Yeah, but I always felt bad. I always felt like I wasn't living up to what my body was supposed to be doing, because they should make smaller little pump bottles.
They do actually. They
2 ounce ones.
Yeah, they make little 2 ounce ones, which are way better psychologically for moms. A 4 ounce pump, that's a good pump.
And honestly, I think too, if we had those smaller bottles, because so much of the pumping, if you're not in the right mind frame and stuff like that, and you're doubting yourself, you're probably not going to let down. It's just not, it's not going to happen the way you want it to happen. And so, anyways, I'm a fan of that. I need to look that up and invest in some of that. Okay, so we talked a little bit about milk supply and oversupply. Are there certain foods, Robin, or how do we support a healthy, robust, even milk supply?
Absolutely. Well, there are a couple different ways. I mean, obviously, the main thing is mom needs to eat enough calories. And it's not necessarily, we are going to talk a little bit about foods that help promote it as well, but really just making sure that mom is eating 1,800 to 2,000 calories a day, because breastfeeding uses up about 300 to 500 calories a day. And if you dip below 1,500, your supply is going to go down. And up until about 3 months, your body's really creating milk from your pregnancy weight. So you can kind of slide a little bit on there, but you really don't want to, because your body is not going to function the way that it needs to if you're not making enough, or if you're not consuming enough calories. And for those moms who start working out once their babies are a little bit older as well, remember, if you're burning 200 to 300 calories a day, you have to make that up in food.
Right.
And so that's the main thing, is just making sure that mom's body is working like a well-oiled machine, and you can't do it without food. And then you can also look at different foods that are considered lactogenic foods. So they're foods that really promote a healthy milk supply. So, some of the main ones that just come to the top of my head are green leafy vegetables. And if you aren't a big fan of kale and spinach and stuff like that, stick it in a smoothie. You won't even taste it. That's what's so great about those. Different things like beans and lentils, raw nuts like almonds and cashews, different seeds like chia seeds, and sesame seed is actually one of the best lactogenic foods. And it's got calcium in it too, which is fantastic. So just different, there's a great book called Mother Food, and this is kind of where I took a lot of my research from, and it's been researched in other places as well, but this is like the compendium of it. But essentially there are lots of different foods, and really what their goal is for the foods is to make sure that you're running like a well-oiled machine, and you're getting all the things that you need to, and it's appropriately triggering certain hormones and stuff like that. And so just having these foods on hand and using them can really help promote a really healthy supply.
I think one of the things when we're talking about speed bumps, one of the big speed bumps we come up against is going back to work and that transition. I feel like there's probably a lot of speed bumps in going back to work, but as it relates to supply, what advice do you have for mothers who are going back to work and still want to keep up their supply?
Absolutely. Well, we've had, if you don't mind me plugging, we've had a bunch of Boob Group episodes on this. We have a fantastic expert named Wendy Wright who talks a lot about keeping up a milk supply while you go back to work. But the main things that she focuses on is setting up a schedule with your boss that makes the most sense, so you're able to pump a couple times a day depending on how long you're going to be at work. Okay. Finding a space that's comfortable, that's relaxing, getting a hands-free bra. I always recommend my moms to eat a snack while they sit down, because I remember when I went back to work, I was like, I have 8 hours, I have to do everything that I need to do,
Yeah.
and I'm not eating, because I didn't have time.
Right.
And so when I would pump is when I would eat and figure I'm making food, so I might as well eat some as well. And also having a huge glass of water that I would drink at that same time. So I knew I was nourishing my body while I was removing some of that milk as well. But main thing, just talking with your boss or your employer, whoever it is, to make sure that you have that space that's comfortable. It's not in a bathroom,
right,
where you actually can let down and relax. And you're not always going to have to pump every 2 to 3 hours at work. Eventually, you're going to get to a point when your child's older that you're not nursing that much, so you don't need to pump that much either. So kind of keeping in mind it's temporary, but it's a way to stay connected to your baby too, which is awesome.
What are some snacks that you would recommend for moms? I know we need to have a certain caloric intake, and sometimes we're just so busy. You feel like you're juggling, especially if you've got multiple kids. You're juggling, and you ladies with twins. Oh my gosh, I don't even know what your twins are. But what advice do you have on ways to, because we don't want to eat just bad stuff, right?
There are so many easy foods that you can do and just keep in your diaper bag, keep next to you while you're nursing. And so making your own trail mix with raw cashews, raw almonds, some cranberries, some coconut, some dark chocolate, stuff like that.
Like that.
Yeah, I know. So keeping that with you. Nuts are fantastic fats, and they're great for brain development for your baby. They keep you really full. And so that's one of them. Hummus with different types of veggies, and we are gluten-free, so gluten-free rice crackers or whole wheat pita, things like that. What else? Greek yogurt is fantastic. Hard-boiled eggs. and hummus I had mentioned, but hummus is great because it has the sesame seeds in it from the tahini. It has garbanzo beans, which are known as a lactogenic food. So just keeping a whole bunch of these with you at all times, and so that way you can just grab into your bag. Obviously, some of them you need refrigeration for, but the other ones you don't, and just an apple with nut butter. So some type of, again, mixing the carbs with the protein is going to help your body digest it better. It's not going to mess with your sugar and insulin level drops as much, and so you're going to feel very even keeled, which as a mom of new kids, it's kind of hard to feel like mentally even keeled, but the food can actually really help, because I find the times where I'm snapping the most at my children is the time when I haven't eaten enough that day, because I'm just tired and I have a headache. So.
Were there, for the panelists, are there specific breastfeeding challenges that you faced with twins? It's so fascinating to me. I just have to ask.
Well, definitely supply. I mean, in my case, I think with twins, it's pretty common that, you have a low earth supply to do both of them.
Yeah.
And, I have to admit, when I first went into it, I had this very, let's just say, idealistic view of like, okay, I'm going to, feed them and we're going to do formula, but it ended up, we did supplement with formula.
Okay.
And I think I realized that my goal was really the long-term breastfeeding. So we went to 14 months with them, and so they got majority breast milk, and they got formula, and that's how it worked. So I think with twins, a lot of moms, I think they beat themselves up like, oh, I'm not doing this, or and then they end up quitting.
Oh yeah.
So I would just say, just do what you can, but just go for the commitment. Make a commitment to yourself and say, even if it's just once a day.
Right.
Yeah.
For me, like I said, I had the opposite problem of everybody. But well, yes
It comes
and no.
with its own set of baggage.
It really does, because anytime they sleep longer than 4 hours, I would wake up just like leaking all over the place.
Wow.
And, I almost felt, when I was back at work, I felt like I was in such a routine, like almost like a machine, you know, because if I didn't pump right at the 3 hours, I would have painful letdown on my own without even, like even today, anytime I even like go over to the pump, I'm like Pavlov's dog, and I get instantly thirsty, and I get a painful letdown, and so it was hard because I feel like I've spent so much of the past, all I've been doing is just feeding or worrying about when I'm going to feed or when I'm going to leak or how. And in the beginning, it was really hard to go anywhere because they ate so frequently, and I had to worry about making sure they were always like draining. And I've dealt with a couple like block ducts just from, if I go too long, it's having to do that. So there's that. And then with the eating, it's hard because you struggle with body image a little bit, So much of who you are is now tied to like your babies. And so for me, making sure I was eating enough, but still being healthy, because I started out pregnancy overweight, and so I was kind of concerned about that, but really working with nutrition, like, trail mix, and actually I lived off of juice and trail mix for quite some time, but just making sure I was eating enough, but still being healthy, and not using it as an excuse to eat whatever I felt like eating, to try to remember oatmeal and eggs and all avocado and hummus and all that. And I'm actually like lighter than I was before pregnancy, just from taking care of myself and worrying about nourishing. So it's been really positive in that with 2 babies and worrying about feeding both of them, making sure to take care of yourself,
Yeah.
And just to add to that, I totally agree. I mean, I think just having twins, it's hard to take care of yourself, period.
Yeah.
So eating, I mean, I had some help from family early on, but I mean, I remember sitting on the couch, trying to do tandem feeding and then pumping, and that whole process would easily take an hour and a half and then 2 hours. So you've got the clock is ticking. Let's see, you got to eat. Maybe
you have
take a
45
shower.
minutes to sleep.
Yeah, exactly.
You have to make. You're like, should I lay down or should I eat lunch?
Right, exactly.
Just grab an avocado.
Yeah.
Healthy fats are super huge too. I didn't mention that, so I'm glad that you mentioned the avocado as well. It's just fantastic.
I would imagine another big speed bump would be the transition into introducing solids to your baby, another great topic that we've explored on the Boob Group. So what advice do you have for moms who are in that transition period?
Sure. Well, so the main thing to recognize is that when you're introducing solids, that up until a year, they're really just fun food. And obviously they become more substantial as the baby gets older and older and older. But those first few months, it's really just all all about
Dexterity.
tasting, texture, just checking it out, making sure they're not allergic to anything, and stuff like that. And so breastfeeding first and then offering solids. And so if your baby sits down in the high chair and he's actually full from breastfeeding, let him play with some. You know, like if you're doing baby-led weaning, give them a little bit of a soft carrot for him to chew on, or some avocado, or if you're doing purees, try it on a spoon, let them mess around, get all dirty all over their face and everything. But again, it's all about just acclimating them to this brand new process.
Yeah.
And so don't stress about the amount of solids that they're getting, because they actually really don't need that much in the beginning.
Right.
And that can help protect a mom's supply too. In your case, it's probably actually helped temper it down a little bit, which is a good thing as well. But for moms who are really concerned that their babies they're not going to be able to meet their personal goal because they've started introducing solids and their supply is going down, check your own calories, make sure you're getting enough, and then also just pull back on the solids just a tad, give a lot more breastfeeding sessions, and then play around with the solid foods until they start getting older, and then they need a little bit more calories and stuff like that, and then you can just increase their portions a little bit more, but still offering the breast first and throughout the day is a great way to keep up your supply.
So how did you ladies manage that as far as the transition into solid foods? Christine?
I mean, we started out with my twins. You kind of started out very simple with doing, sort of the rice cereal type of thing. And I think at that time I would breastfeed them, and then I would do solids after they were breastfed. So I didn't see any substantial drop, in their breastfeeding. But one thing I will say is, of course, around that 6-month time is when they get their teeth in. So of course everything changed. I thought I had everything figured out, the whole sleeping, breastfeeding, and I think the teething really put a wrench into it all, just the crankiness and whatnot. So that was really a big speed bump. So I felt like that just added to a layer of distraction, when they're at the breast, and of course, chomping down and whatnot. So I know that was a big hurdle for me for a few months, a few months going on.
Yeah. And have you started the process?
So we don't have teeth yet either. I feel like I'm just alive. No, but at first it was at 6. We waited till 6 months for solids, and I looked into baby-led weaning, and I thought about doing a combination, but my babies they won't let me feed them with spoons. But for me personally, more important than them getting the food was just having them be a part of family mealtime.
Exactly.
So we've never put the babies to bed and then eaten dinner myself. We have them at the table since they were little. We got those Fisher-Price Space Savers, and we just sat them.
Oh yeah.
Just
we
sat
have those too.
Yeah, sat them right next to us from like 5 months on every single meal. And so I was really concerned about, I heard about that 6-month growth spurt, supply dip, and to kind of counteract, I made sure I nursed before we fed them anything. And then it was really just kind of sitting in their high chairs and playing, playing with a sippy, playing with some Cheerios, playing with and it ended up working out that like early on they weren't really consuming very much solids, but they got really good at picking stuff up because they were just sitting in their chairs playing, so really kind of helped with their skills. And now that they're 9 months, they've gone down to nursing less, definitely, and they are eating a lot more, and they're good at it because they've been part of it, and they'll eat anything you put in front of them. You hear about kids making faces or spitting it out, it doesn't matter what.
That sounds like my little one. He'll eat anything I put in front of him.
If it's good, give it to me.
I know, right?
And it's actually been nice with the nursing a little bit less because it's easier to get out of the house. When you're going 4 hours instead of 2.
Oh, for sure.
Absolutely.
For sure. Well, the last question that I wanted to talk about briefly, Robin, is in breastfeeding our babies past a year. We have this, idea we want to make it to a year, but even going past that there are benefits. It's not like past a year and suddenly your breast milk goes sour.
Yeah, so it expires. No longer good.
So what are some of the benefits of breastfeeding past a year?
Well, obviously they're nutritional benefits, and to be honest, I can't remember all the numbers that I gave in my lecture today, but I actually do have it on the San Diego Breastfeeding Center website. Okay. But the percentages of the calcium that they're getting, but really I focus on also the immunological properties. Yeah. That is nothing that you can ever get in food, and so being able to inoculate them to their environment through breast milk is so significant, including all of the other protein, calcium, B12 vitamins they're getting, vitamin D that they're getting through the breast milk. So you're right, it doesn't just expire like the minute they turn 1. It's like, oh, okay, it's not good anymore. That's not the case at all. But then we also like to focus on the emotional benefits. As any breastfeeding mom knows, yes, it's about nutrition, but it's also about the connection that you make with your child. And so toddlers are busy. They're busy bees. babies. They're running around all over the place. And so the nice thing about nursing a toddler is that you're kind of their station, like their check-in. So if they're running around, going crazy, then they come back in and they check in with you. It's a great way to nuzzle in with them when you get home if you're a working mom, to come home and that's your time to settle in with them. And then there are some, when your babies are sick, it's fantastic to nurse them because sometimes, as we know, when we're sick, we don't want a full meal, but they'll all come back to breast because it's just that nice, warm, and cozy thing. So it's like your superpower. Like you can really heal anything with the breast, even with younger kids, but especially with older than 1 year old. So many, many benefits.
Well, and the one thing that I learned recently, I was shocked by, but of course, I mean, it would be true. I don't know why I would think it wouldn't. Is that breast milk can even be applied topically to stuff, and seriously,
for rashes too.
It works for rashes.
It's amazing to me.
A little milk on it, it's cleared up for the next day.
So, I mean, think of what that's doing to your baby inside of its body, you know, if it can be applied topically, right?
Exactly.
Okay, ladies, well, thank you so much. We are completely out of time here, but I want to thank you guys for being here, and of course, for everyone that is watching us broadcast live. For more great parenting information, be sure to check out our shows. Again, we've got 3 of them. Preggy Pals is about pregnancy. Parent Savers is for parents of newborns, infants, and toddlers. And again, the Boob Group, the show that Robin hosts, is about breastfeeding. So for those of you watching us live online, you can save 50% on all of our memberships for our shows. All you have to do is head to the show websites, go under the members section, and go ahead and sign up. You have to use the promo code YNBF2013, which stands for Your Natural Baby Fair 2013. And if you want links to the show websites, visit newmommymedia.com. So we will be back shortly. Thank you.